Welcome in to Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Happy to have you with us here on this Thursday. Plenty to talk about here on Seahawks Today. And before we get to the business at hand, we want to remind you, as always, to subscribe to Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. You can do so by hitting the red button below for more free Seahawks coverage. Also, YouTube.com/Seahawks TV will take you exactly where you need to go to become a subscriber to Seahawks Today. We certainly would appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get started with the news regarding DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, as teams around the league have made calls about those two to see if there's any interest at hand, if the Seahawks would like to move on, as we've seen some big receiver targets around the National Football League get traded, including Davante Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders, Tyreek Hill most recently to the Miami Dolphins, and with the Seahawks moving on from Russell Wilson, inquiring minds want to know, are the Seahawks in rebuild mode? More on that later, but let's get to some tweets. This one from Jack Settleman. He writes on Twitter, sources tell me that the Packers and Chiefs have inquired about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's availability. Seattle is open to listening to offers for their star wide receivers, but nothing is imminent. There you have it from Jack Settleman there. Here's another tweet. This comes from Matt Verderum, and Matt Verderum reports that he's told the Chiefs have not inquired about Seahawks wide receivers Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but hasn't happened as of now. So with that all in mind here, let's take a few steps back. The way I look at this, folks, is that these possibilities of moving on from Metcalf or Lockett, you can't do it no matter what. You cannot trade DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, two guys that are still relatively young receivers that had really good seasons this past year despite Russell Wilson missing a portion of last year. And when you look at these two pieces, they're foundations to your franchise, to your offense. And to me, that's why you can't rebuild this team just yet, because you have pieces to get that offense contending right now, with those two leading the way, that most teams around the National Football League would love to have as your number one and number two receivers. So unless you get an offer that you just simply can't refuse, you got to hold on to both these guys. DK Metcalf on Twitter, here's what he said last night when he was asked about the door being open in Kansas City. He said, well, better close it. Heard it gets cold at night. Having a good laugh at that. He doesn't look like he wants to go anywhere. Meanwhile, here is the Seahawks wide receiver depth chart. As you can see, Metcalf and Lockett leading the way, and a big drop-off after that when you move on to wide receiver 3 and 4 after those guys. By the numbers for this dynamic duo this past season, look at that. You're talking about Lockett having over 1,000 yards, 1,175 to be exact, and Metcalf with just under 1,000 yards, 967, 12 touchdowns for Metcalf, 8 touchdowns for Lockett there. So, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. I want to hear from the 12th man directly. Should Seattle keep Metcalf and Lockett? Type yes. Type Y for yes. In for no. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you here on Seahawks Today. Got some more tweets for you as the rumors are flying today. Colin Kaepernick. He was in Seattle. And here's a tweet from Bill Condotta of the Seattle Times. He gave some insights on what exactly went down. Here's what he tweeted out. Colin Kaepernick threw passes for roughly 90 minutes at Dempsey Indoor today with former Husky and current Seahawk Aaron Fuller and a few others. He said afterwards he has talked to Pete Carroll and John Schneider, and while nothing is in the works, hopes the door is still open. Now, guys, the Seahawks have been some of the more vocal supporters of Colin Kaepernick. You heard Pete Carroll say back in 2020 that in 2017, when Kaepernick was a free agent, that he wished they would have brought him in, but they did not do so because they felt like Kaepernick deserved to be a starter in the National Football League at that point in time. But Kaepernick, 35 years old now, there's no chance this happens. I mean, despite what you may think of Kaepernick, you may be rooting for the guy and want to see him get a second chance. He may be looking good in all these workouts and such, but at this point in time, it's been too long. If Colin Kaepernick was going to play the National Football League again, it would have happened by now. It's not happening in the NFL. It's not happening in Seattle. I can tell you that right now. So while the rumors are out there, while the workouts go on, no chance Colin Kaepernick ends up with the Seattle Seahawks this year, despite them not having a clear quarterback with Drew Lock being QB1 right now. But I would expect the Seahawks to add in another guy, whether that's signing Geno Smith like Pete Carroll's talked about, or drafting a quarterback, or maybe even a Baker Mayfield trade. But Colin Kaepernick, I think that's unlikely. What do you guys think? Let us know. It is your turn in the comments. Type S for sign. Type P for pass. We'd love to hear from you there if you want to see Colin Kaepernick end up with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, folks, I'm new to the 12th man, to the Seahawks Nation, and I'd love to hear from you on Twitter. You can give me a follow at Tyler Jones Live. Look for that verified check mark and send me a comment or two. Would love to hear from you guys what you have to say there on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live. Give me a follow. Trying to get up to 6,600 followers, and certainly want to see you guys represented there from Seattle and the rest of Seahawks Nation there. Let's go ahead and move on. This was a nice signing for the Seahawks, and bear with me on the name, folks. Joel Iyiegbuniwe. Iyiegbuniwe. I think I got that right. If not, we'll learn along the way when it comes to Iyiegbuniwe. See, I'm already tripping up here. Didn't play much last year. A guy that had 4 tackles, 1 forced fumble, but nonetheless a cheap contract for the Seahawks with just getting over $1 million for 1 year. Now, here's some more details. Got a tweet for you here from Michael Sean Duggar of The Athletic. Here's what he had to say. In addition to reuniting with cornerback Justin Coleman, we talked about that a couple days ago, hearing the Seahawks have also agreed to terms with inside linebacker Joel Iyiegbuniwe, a 2018 fourth-round pick of the Bears. Joel is familiar with assistant head coach Sean Desai, and could end up as a depth piece for Seattle starting linebackers. So there's the movement there, as you see them picking up a linebacker for not too much of a high price there. Other news for the Seahawks, Kerry Hyder is staying within the division as he signed a 1-year, $1.5 million deal to go to the San Francisco 49ers. Hyder last year, we saw him play in about 15 games, had 33 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 2 fumble recoveries for the Seahawks last year. And so you'll see him still a couple times every year as he'll be facing the Seahawks there with the San Francisco 49ers, as the Niners are building a really good team there. And we'll see what the Seahawks can do to try to compete with the Niners and the Rams in a very tough NFC West, along with the Cardinals once again. Quandre Diggs, let's talk about him now. Quandre Diggs, starting safety for the Seattle defense, was asked about in a local interview in Seattle with Fox 13 if this Seahawks team is looking to rebuild or not. Here's what he had to say. It's always tough to see a guy like Russ go, referring to Russell Wilson, to see Russ and Bobby go, Bobby Wagner, and it's just like, sheesh, what mode are we in? Being able to talk to Pete, being able to understand that we're not in rebuild mode. We tried to get this thing back rolling and build a team differently a little bit, is what Diggs had to say there. So, with that being said, a lot of questions asked. When you let go of your franchise quarterback, are you in rebuild mode? And I got to tell you, now isn't the time to rebuild for the Seattle Seahawks here. You have your star receivers. You have a good backfield to work with, a couple of key pieces on that defense with Diggs and with Jamal Adams. Now's not the time to rebuild if you're the Seattle Seahawks. I think that you have to continue to find weapons, go find a quarterback that's suitable, and you could take this team to the next level. Yes, last year was a down year. They only won 7 games, but I don't think it's over yet for the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think Pete Carroll, at his age of 70-plus years old, is interested in a rebuild here. I think that they're going to do what they can to try to compete for a playoff spot in 2022. And so we're curious, what do you guys think? Is it time to go ahead and tear it all down and start the rebuild? If you think the rebuild is what should go on for the Seahawks, tell us in the comments by typing R for rebuild. If you think they should compete, if you think this is the team that should be building towards a playoff berth, if you think that they're going to be competitive, tell us by typing C for compete in the comments below. C for compete, R for rebuild here on Seahawks Today. That will do it. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.